Hello, everyone. Hello, looks like we are live. I hope you can hear us and see us well. Today, I have an absolute powerhouse roundtable with such a special guest. And how we pull this together, it's a true miracle. So thank you, God, because everyone is in a different part of the world, each one of us. And we were able to manage. So Pepe Escobar is with me, who is a true legend in journalism, and he is geopolitical analyst and of course a prolific author. And I will be asking a question about his latest book, that's for sure. I will not forget. And of course, the one and only Mr. Larry Johnson, who is everyone's favorite on my channel. And as you know, Larry is also a political commentator and a former analyst at the CIA agency. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope I can ask you great questions today.
Thank you.
Waste
It's
of your
our pleasure to be with you.
Ask questions. We may not have any answers, but
It's-
we'll still try.
Thank you. So everyone who's watching, I just would like to let you know that I have attached already the links to Mr. Johnson and to Mr. Escobar down below this live stream. However, before we end the live stream, I will be asking maybe there is something else to add. My links as well, if you would like to support my work, is also down below this live stream. So I was thinking about this conversation, and of course we will free flow with this as usually we do, that's life. However, I would like to set the tone in the beginning because there are two categories, or rather I would say two most profitable businesses in the world that I would like to address in this live stream. So let's start with actually number one at this point, which is defense industry. That was reported in 2022 that the aerospace and defense industry results of $741 billion. In one of your presentations, Pepe, you said international military strategy of the USA states that 4 countries are existential threat for America, and that is Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. With me not being an expert, but somehow watching what's unfolding, I'm thinking, all right, so we already have a conflict with Russia, 2022. We are entering the conflict with Iran, 2024. Now, 2025, as they told us already, will be China. How can we stop this madness? Where is this heading? Can we turn this plan, this demonic plan, around?
no, we can't. And Larry knows from the inside. I know a little bit about it from the outside. Even considering I last lived in Washington a while ago. That was in the beginning of the Obama years. This is directly connected with the way the Russia-China strategic partnership is organizing the burst of the multipolar world, which is a complex, the enormity of the complexity is quite something. And this is something that you see in way more detail when you are in Moscow, or when you talk to some of the players, diplomatic players, economic players, political players, geopolitical players, and of course when you talk to the Chinese, which is something that when you are in Moscow, you have plenty of time to talk to visiting Chinese, visiting Iranians for that matter, the main actors of Eurasia as a whole, and the burst of the multipolar world. The fact that they have interlocking strategic partnerships is already very telling. The Russia-China comprehensive strategic partnership, as they define it formally, the China-Iran strategic partnership, and the Russia-Iran strategic partnership. So all these major decisions on so many levels, geopolitical, geoeconomic, and in many cases military, they are decided by these three at the highest levels. And now they are companions, let's put it this way, inside Brics, the Brics 10, and inside the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So obviously, those people in the Beltway as a whole who started to pay attention, especially when they finally had to admit that the Brics is not a talk shop. It's a very, very serious organization. And Foreign Minister Lavrov say it now out loud. Look, this is the way. And we have enormous hopes on the organization of BRICS, and especially this year with the Russian presidency of BRICS. It's like, when we had one of conversations, a group of us, and one of them, Larry, was in Moscow. It was not with Lavrov, but they know that this is their best shot and that they have only one shot, and it's this year. The start of the multipolar world in practice is 2024. So this is the year of the big decision. Of course, we are still only 3.5 months. The next 2.5 will be crucial because in June there's going to be a BRICS ministerial meeting, and they need a roadmap from June to the summit in Kazan in October, and for the next few years as well, including BRICS, all of them, the new ones, BRICS 10. What Lavrov says, look, we have to accommodate, first of all, we need to accommodate the new members. BRICS 10, it's not BRICS 5 anymore. And we have the list of 40-somethings who want to be part of it. So, in a few years, we can have BRICS 50, which will be the new UN for all practical purposes. So I would say the historical responsibility of especially Russia this year is, off the charts, and they know it. They know it. They may not know yet the formalities and how they're going to conduct the process. There's a lot of talks. There are BRICS Business Council meetings, strategic meetings, related to de-dollarization related meetings as well. But at least they are on the driving seat. And the Chinese know it as well. The Indians know it as well. And the Iranians. So these strategic relationships are inside all these deliberations. So the Americans who are paying attention in the Beltway, they looked at it and said, wow, so now the train has left the station. And unfortunately, they are not on the train and they are not at the station. It's going to the other side. And that leads to a sort of, maybe Larry can define it precisely, a mix of fear, paralysis, and extra aggression from the part of some American elites. I would love to hear Larry's take on all that.
Thank you, Pepe. I want to ask you, Larry, can we stop this madness?
Well, no. There's too much economic incentive in it. I've got a PhD comprehensive field in international economics. And so I took, introduction to economics and microeconomics and macroeconomics and different economics courses. The material they never teach in those courses is about how the defense industry figures so largely in so many economies and ends up being an engine of wealth for so many people, and that creation of that wealth ends up getting plowed back into the political system. And it has become particularly perverse in the United States. Russia does not have the same problem because basically the states kept control of the defense industries so that the private sector is not out there with an incentive to bribe congressmen to give them money. And just as an example, out of curiosity, I started looking this up just to make sure I'd have it correct. The ATACMS missiles, that's Lockheed Martin. HIMARS missiles, that's Lockheed Martin too. How about the Javelin, the anti-tank guided munition? Well, that's a joint project between Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. Are we picking up a pattern here? Hey, how about the 155 millimeter howitzer? Well, that's General Dynamics. And then Patriot missile system, that's Raytheon. So what happens was, like this recent aid package that was approved in Congress in the House on Saturday, They're going to take billions of dollars and give them to these corporations who are going to, they don't build them real fast. They don't build a lot of them, but by God, they're really expensive. And then those companies, once they get that money, they're turning it around and giving it back to the members of Congress in terms of political contributions. That's why with an election coming up in November, a lot of these members of Congress, boy, we need some money. And this is a good way to get that money quick. So, I mean, it's the ultimate bribery. We saw the beginnings of this corruption during the American Civil War, where as the North, as they started needing certain things, entrepreneurs realized, hey, I could make a quick buck here. And then after the Civil War, that sort of, made a lot of people wealthy, but then the defense industry sort of declined. It was not at the center. Then World War I, it was too brief to really gin it up. World War II is where it took off. And at the end of World War II, really a Frankenstein had been created. And so put that aside, when you look at Brics is not founded upon defense industry and defense spending. And I fully anticipate, if it hasn't started yet, that the Central Intelligence Agency and British MI6 will start actively targeting Brics with both covert action activities as well as intelligence collection. Mm-hmm. And let me just make one, it's important that your viewers understand how intelligence collection takes place. And I learned this firsthand when I led a State Department team to Brazil and to Argentina and Uruguay and Paraguay back in 1992. It was right after the Israeli embassy had been blown up. Mm-hmm. And there was suspicion, speculation that maybe Hezbollah was involved. So when I get to the U.S. Embassy in Buenos Aires, I knew the guy who was the chief of station of the CIA operations. And I asked him, I said, where is Hezbollah on your collection plan? So every year, the CIA creates collection plans for each of the individual stations. And those collection plans identify priorities like 1 through 10 of this is the kind of information we want. And at the end of that year, if you're like Anya, if you're the chief of station in Poland, then we would come and sit down with you and say, okay, we asked you to collect on Russian diplomats, and we asked you to find out about this particular industry, and you get evaluated and to say, yeah, we got X number of sources, and we did this, that, and the other thing. When I asked this chief of station, because there'd been all this speculation and there was reporting from the Argentines pointing out the possibility of Hezbollah involvement, I said, where's Hezbollah on the collection plan? And he goes, it's not on the plan. And if it's not on the plan, they're not collecting. Think about it.
They're not collecting. Yeah.
No. Now, like Pepe as a journalist, if he hears that, man, he's going to pursue the lead. He doesn't need a collection plan. It's flexible. But this is very bureaucratic. So what I'm not certain of is whether the bureaucracy has really caught up to the reality of Brics. That may be the saving grace for them.
Excellent. Yeah.
So this to me looks like, in a very simple way of thinking of mine, that the collective West is losing the force as a military power to oppose the East, which is using the strength of the economic power.
Yes, geopolitical and geoeconomics. And basically, it all started in 2013 when Xi Jinping announced what was not only a geoeconomic strategy. It was the overarching foreign policy concept for China for, I would say, the rest of this decade, the New Silk Roads. And the Americans didn't, when I say Americans, the Beltway complex.
Yeah.
They dismissed it. Larry knows this very well. They dismissed it completely. And then obviously they started undermining it. This is a death trap for the global majority, etc. No. The pandemic, of course, there was let's say, a lull of 2.5 years. Now it's back since the New Silk Road Summit last year in Beijing. And they are refining it. It's a long-term project. It's open. The Chinese listen. They made a lot of mistakes in many projects, from the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor to some projects in Africa. They are learning. More workforce in developing countries working on it. When there's a huge success like that high-speed rail from Yunnan, from Kunming to Laos, it's amazing. Laos is not landlocked anymore. Laos can become a mini Vietnam soon because now they're not landlocked anymore. So huge successes. And this, in terms of the geopolitical reach of China, explains why China is such a success in Africa. Explains why China could do something similar, like building a railway uniting the Brazilian Atlantic coast to the Pacific, which would be for the benefit of China, because riches in Brazil could get closer to the Pacific, and then, instead of doing a circumnavigation, they go to the Pacific and then they go straight to China. And the beauty of it on a historical level is that the Chinese, they learn from their past experience and from the dynastic history and from their trade history from the 2nd century BC to the 14th, 15th, at the apex of the Silk Road, before the let's say, the thalassocratic era. And of course, and this is all geoeconomics, but enveloped by geopolitics. It's what they had the economic firepower to implement that the Russians didn't have. The first global leader that talked from Lisbon to Vladivostok was Putin. But Russia couldn't implement that at the time. This was 2 or 3 years before the New Silk Roads. And the Ministry of Commerce in China looked at it, oh, this is a great idea, and we can pull it off. And that's exactly what they're doing. So from a point of view of the thalassocratic powers, it's a mix of disdain and then, no, come on, we control the world since the 19th century, the British Empire. This is never going to change. It is changing in front of them. And there's nothing they can do about it. It's like the revenge of the heartland against the maritime powers, in fact. So this is the big picture of the whole thing,
Thank you, Pepe. I want to ask you now, gentlemen, this question. Actually, it's a combination of three questions that is all wrapped up in one. Poland, where I am originally from, as you know, yesterday, our Polish-speaking president, Andrzej Duda, I call it Polish-speaking government because there is I would say, I would just leave it there. So he said that Poland is ready to station NATO's nuclear weapons on its territory if it's needed to protect the eastern flank. There is no doubt in my mind, knowing what we have here, what kind of systems they are implementing and what's going on with the Polish army, etc., where this is heading. I would like to ask you, do you think that Poland and the Baltic states will be the next Ukraine 2.0? And another question here, how this will be connected with escalation in the Middle East? Because it looks to me like this attack on Iran was more an attack on the Brics, really, than anything else. So this was strictly about resources and money, in my opinion. So this is Brics. This is the influence of Brics. But for some reason, I see there will be a connecting part between the Middle East region and the Eastern Europe. As I don't know if you know, I think it was, who said it yesterday? One of the officials from Israel said that Poland, it was almost like an order, Poland should sanction Iran because if it doesn't, the nukes will go into the direction of Eastern Europe. So kind of like threatening us in a way. So
Yeah.
I would like to give this very loaded question to take from here.
Well, let me start with, I think that the potential for the war in the Middle East is a diversion from the war in Ukraine. Someone could almost construct the theory that this was deliberately sparked by Russia and China to divert the United States. Because what's happened for the United States, Israel is the number one priority because Israel has paid the most money for it. The American Israeli Public Affairs Committee virtually owns the U.S. Congress. And as such, Israel's the number one priority. So even though they were out there waving the Ukrainian flags on the floor of the House of Representatives the other day, we've approved this money for Ukraine, which is a lie. It's all going to the U.S. corporations. Nonetheless, that when it comes time, it's just like if you're a parent and you've only got one slice of bread, and you've got your child, and then this redheaded stepchild, this adopted child. Who are you going to give the bread to? Your own flesh and blood. That's what's happening right now to Israel. That they're at the head of the line. They get the if there are 155 millimeter shells, they get it. If they're 2,000-pound bombs, they get it. And here's Ukraine, who used to be, I thought we were the favored child. No, no longer. And what the other thing that though these conflicts are exposing is that even though the United States defense industry its annual budget is approaching $1 trillion. I think this year's like 840 billion. So, 160 shy of $1 trillion. It is that budget is at least three times larger than the military defense budgets of China and Russia combined. Think about that. So you think, man, more money means you're really, really good. And yet what we see on display is that the United States Navy deployed in the Red Sea to open the Red Sea for traffic, maritime traffic, to stop those Houthis. Can't do it. The United States has failed. We're going into the 6th month. The Red Sea is not open. And so this notion that they can, provoke a war with Iran, it can't fight. It can't fight it. The United States has created an image of itself as this impressive superpower simply because we got really expensive weapons. We have a lot of nuclear warheads, and we could launch some of them and wipe things out, but we can't do the follow-up to bring any kind of leadership and organization. That was what happened at the end of World War II, when this international rules-based order, as they call it, was set up. And that's what's coming apart at the seams right now with Brics.
That's it, Larry. I have nothing to add on this one.
So you don't see there will be escalation with Iran?
There will be escalation. There is already an escalation with Iran. And especially because of the message, and after the message, and after the new equation. The Iranians are saying it out loud. Now there's a new equation. We're going to respond practically on real time on any provocation attack against our assets inside Iran, around us, across the axis of resistance. But like Larry said, what is the US going to do? They're going to start a war against Iran. They're going to start a ground invasion with Iran. They're going to do the neocons in 2005, 2006, real men go to Tehran. No, they cannot do that. If the Houthis can paralyze them, can you imagine Iran with over 100,000 missiles, including hypersonics that the Americans don't have? And now some people from the IRGC are saying it out loud. Why do we need a nuclear weapon? We have our missiles. We have our hypersonics. And it's true. The war of the future is already being fought now, and it is with drones and missiles. And the US is still in the paradigm of the end of the Second World War, right? Right, Larry. We talked about that before. And the way that this new equation is being now, the declination of the new equation, it's on another level. And don't forget, who conceptualized everything that is happening now? General Soleimani, essentially. This is something that you learn when you go to Iran. I learned this during my past 3 visits to Iran, possibly. So for the past 5, 6, 7 years, way before his assassination, the beginning of our decade. The guy who was killed by the Israeli attack in Damascus, Zahedi, was basically Soleimani's number 2. He was Soleimani 2.0. He was coordinating the IRGC with Syria and Lebanon. And that's why he's so dangerous. And the Israelis understood that he was as dangerous as Soleimani. And Soleimani is as a conceptualizer of how the axis of resistance can, let's say, slowly boil the frog, as my friends from the Cradle in Beirut put it in a brilliant article, by the way. They are slowly boiling the frog because Soleimani taught them how to do it. And this applies to the people that he taught in Syria. For instance, I met Syrian commanders in Mashhad, actually, and they explained to me how they were trained by Soleimani to go back to Syria to fight ISIS, right? Ansar Allah, strategically, they learned, the Houthis from Ansar Allah, they learned from Soleimani as well. Hashd al-Shabi in Iraq, the different militias that are part of Hashd al-Shabi, we visited them there. At the time, it was crazy, Larry. Can you imagine that they had a secret cell inside the green zone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They took us to their secret cell inside the green zone, which was protected by essentially American soldiers.
Yeah.
And then they explained to us, at the time Mohandes was alive, the guy who was killed side by side with Soleimani at that attack, January 3, Baghdad airport. Mohandes was let's say, the operational chief of Hashd al-Shabi. He talked a lot about the overall strategy. So this is all coordinated. It's slowly boiling the frog in different cauldrons. It's not only one cauldron. It's like they're taking the frog from one cauldron to the next one. And now they're closing in little by little. So I can imagine how these people at the IDF, for instance, they are freaking out because they are fighting now a demultiplied enemy on several fronts, and they cannot fight them all the time in several fronts. They couldn't even subdue Hamas in 6 months. Can you imagine them against Hezbollah? Can you imagine long-term against the Houthis? Go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
No, I fully agree. It is, the animosity in the United States and in Israel directed at Iran is so bizarre. Because when you go back to 1979 and the Iranian, the Islamic Revolution that took over, by 1980, going into 81, both Israel and the United States were providing weapons, arms to Iran. Exactly. We were arming them. Yes. And that relationship with Israel continued for at least 8 years until in the aftermath of the whole Iran-Contra affair and that exposure that it ended. But the current day, the United States claims that one of the threats, international threats it's fighting, is ISIS. And what is ISIS? ISIS is a Salafist, a Sunni-based organization that is ultra-religious extremists. They are completely intolerant of Shia. And the birth of ISIS with Zarqawi in Iraq in 2003, going into 2004, exposed the differences between Al-Qaeda and ISIS, because ISIS, as our colleague had he got some reprimands from Osama bin Laden and Ayman Zawahiri saying, hey, stop attacking all these Shia. Attack the Americans. Zarqawi was more interested in killing Iraqi Shias than he was in killing Americans. So now jump ahead. The war in Syria is underway. And Iran is in there fighting ISIS because ISIS is attacking and killing Iranians. They're killing Shias. And so who is the United States now arming? ISIS. So, I mean,
the Foreign Legion, right, Larry? Yes, the Foreign Legion, an American Foreign Legion, in fact. Yeah.
So it is. It's just we're in an Alice in Wonderland kind of world where it's not rational. It is not. It's driven really by what I call moneyed interest and the priorities that when you listen to the rhetoric coming out of the members of Congress, they don't understand a damn thing about the world, not a thing. Mm-hmm. And they're not willing to even try to listen, understand, or develop any appreciation for why is Russia doing what Russia's doing now? Well, it's very clear. They've only been invaded 4 times since 1812 by the West. So I don't know why they would want to sort of shore up their western border so that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, gosh, how crazy can you get? Sorry for the sarcasm.
Well, that's so true. From what you're saying, I'm under the impression that this plan to have a war with China in 2025 is not going to happen because they simply won't be able to pull it off.
Well, they will not. In fact, just look at the recent historical record. Afghanistan, they were defeated by a bunch of disorganized Pashtuns, in fact, with almost 0 weapons, apart from Kalashnikovs. Made, in fact, fake Kalashnikovs made in the tribal areas, they cost $50 a piece. What happened in after, of course, October 7th, which, don't forget, this is a forever war, a subsect of a forever war fought by the so-called aircraft carrier in West Asia, Israel. The humiliation that they suffered from the Houthis. After 6 months, one coalition of the willing, another coalition of ourselves, another coalition from Europe, another mini coalition from Europe, and nothing happens. And the Houthis still control the Bab el-Mandeb and navigation in the Red Sea. And, of course, the extra humiliation by Israel that when Iran changes the rules and implements a new equation that now it's valid for the whole of West Asia. And still, these neocons or Ziocons want to start a war with China. Exactly what Larry just said. They never learn. They cannot even understand a historical process and a series of humiliations that the record shows, and still they don't learn. It's like they're still living with, they just wrote the project for the new American century yesterday. It's completely absurd. And it's irrational.
Yeah, let me just add into this that
yes,
the United States, when you see like the number 2 guy in INDOPACOM. INDOPACOM is the U.S. military command that's responsible for sort of the from Pakistan, India through all of the Pacific. And so it comes out in public saying, yeah, we're going to be at war with China in 2 years. Now, if you're in China and you're like the director of intelligence and you're the minister of defense, or you're even just a junior analyst, you're going to hear that and you're going to say, maybe we better pay attention to that. Because the United States is constantly talking about the threats posed by Russia and China. And I keep coming back to it. Give me the list of countries in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia that Russia and China have invaded. okay, China invaded Vietnam in 1979, but that was in response to Vietnam invading Cambodia.
In Cambodia, yes.
And China got its ass kicked. So, wasn't this effective military power. So the only country in the world that's been involved with multiple invasions of multiple countries over the last 60 years is the United States. So if a Martian landed tomorrow and knew nothing about history of the world and had to figure, his job is to report back. What is the most dangerous country in the world? He'd look around and figure all this out. He'd come back and say, it's the United States. These people are crazy. They're not even rational anymore. They're doing things that are against their own self-interest. And
Not really, but aliens are a threat as well, as you know.
Yeah, well, what you have to understand is you got to have a threat in order to justify increasing that defense budget.
Mm-hmm.
And by God, if it doesn't exist, you're going to create one.
You're going to create one.
Yeah,
exactly. And now that they have, can you imagine now that they have 4 existential threats in a row? The new axis of evil: Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. So it's going to be over trillions of dollars of defense budget.
Yeah.
Soon.
So that narrative.
Okay, go ahead. No.
That narrative that they created for the mainstream media to spread it through the populations of those countries that's supposed to put 4% of their GDP to NATO, for example, Polonia, I'm saying here, So that narrative, gentlemen, what do you think? How overall people really are approaching this? Do you think there is less and less people who believe in this crap at this point?
No. I mean, what I see what's happening in the United States is people are still sort of bamboozled by it. What I want is, I wish I had sort of the creative editing powers to, create the video. Do you remember that scene from the movie Cabaret with Liza Minnelli and Joel Grey? Money, 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 money.
Yeah.
Man, that's it. That's it. That is what's driving this whole train in the West, because that it is this connection between the defense industry and the economy. It has become the cornerstone of the Western economy now. It is, and yet the really bizarre thing is that unlike World War II, where the United States was an industrial giant, I think it was Admiral Yamamoto who said in the aftermath of the attack on Pearl Harbor, we've awakened a sleeping giant. Mm-hmm. Well, that sleeping giant's dead and gone. We got the mini-me now because all of those have been cycled out. And yet, here's Russia, who's been routinely described as a country, as a gas station masquerading as a country. It actually has the most powerful defense industry in terms of capability of producing weapons that work and that can be rapidly deployed. I think it surpasses even China on that front. For example, Russia can make its own airplanes. They don't need foreign components for commercial airliners. China still does. Mm-hmm. So what we're, and Pepe's been really brilliant writing about all of this. What we're witnessing is this transition from a world that the United States dominated and had created sort of mythology about it, and that's fallen apart on all fronts. And it's out of that collapse, though, that there's a lot of danger, because the United States is not wanting to relinquish that and is actually making one stupid decision after another to sort of exacerbate.
And this is basically an illustration of what Larry just said. It's productive capitalism against exploitative neoliberalism. And now the US is paying the price, and the West as a whole is paying the price. Russia and China, the new industrial giants, it's productive capitalism.
Yeah.
The industrial military complex in China, like Larry said, they make outstanding weapons that actually work. and test it in a real battlefield. It's a completely different story. Just like the way China, since they came up with the concept of Made in China 2025, that was at the beginning of Trump's term. Okay, by 2025, we're going to be the leaders, or at least second best, in 10 top electronics and artificial intelligence fields. They're getting there, even if they don't talk about this terminology anymore, Made in China 2025. But they started repatriating their best engineers and technicians from Silicon Valley and elsewhere, offering the excellent jobs to work in China. They boosted their research centers. Like, why do you think from one day to another you have Huawei under absolutely brutal sanctions? They come up with the best smartphone on the planet out of the blue. No, it's not out of the blue, because they had started years before. And that's why they're ahead. This is something that, for instance, Samsung was doing in the beginning of the 2000s, for instance. And this is what Huawei started doing it by the end of the 2000s. Okay, we have to start thinking 10 years in advance compared to everybody else. That's why they pull it off. That's why they got the best ideas from high-speed rail from France, for instance. And they developed their own high-speed rail industry, but with Chinese technology. And now they export their technology all over the place. Productive capitalism is very, very simple. It's not a speculative economy. And our friend Michael Hudson has been probably the #1 analyst of how the FIRE industry controls the Western economy, international financial system. And now the whole thing is going down.
Yeah. Just one.
Yes.
I always appreciate irony. So one of the criticisms directed at China is, well, they're getting this because they're stealing technology.
Stealing technology.
Yeah, they're stealing technology. You ever hear of a company called Microsoft? So Microsoft did its thing by stealing stuff from Apple. Okay, so it's like, save me the sanctimony when if you're out preaching about the need for celibacy and you're running a whorehouse, it just sort of undermines the integrity of your message. And that's a lot what we're seeing from the West. That, the TikTok, we got to stop TikTok. And you're looking at, because why do they want to stop TikTok? Well, because the CIA didn't help create TikTok, like Facebook and these other social media platforms where the intelligence community has its hooks in deep. So it's just, after a while, I'm old enough now that I've gotten tired of it.
It comes to the point when anything that's banned by the West means it's good.
Yes. Now we are coming to the point where there is a direct correlation in any case. Crazy, isn't it? And a lot of young people all over the world, they already got it.
Oh yeah, they do. Question for Pepe. But yes. Larry, you can, of course, please address it afterwards, absolutely, as well. Ask your guest, Pepe Escobar, about the IDF F-35 in Jordan with the nuke that was alleged, a nuke that was going to be dropped over Iran.
I knew it. I was expecting it already.
That was shut down by Russia. I had to ask you because it was a very specific question. So can you address it, Pepe, please? Thank you.
Anya, everybody's waiting for this one. You know that. Literally everybody watching you is waiting for this one. Okay, let's start from tonight or late night. I woke up at 4:30 because I needed to check my phone because I was waiting for at least 2 extremely important messages. Essentially, I would say definitively corroborating the first information that I received. And we have to talk about Asia as an intro. I moved to Asia 30 years ago. It took me 3 decades to build a network in several parts of Asia, Central Asia, West Asia, Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, because I lived in Hong Kong. Then there are Chinese ramifications. And it's based on trust. The way Asians value trust, ethics, and the fact that you cannot lie for, especially to your friends. And this mutual trust, it's the essential part of a very good relationship, a long-term relationship. For instance, my first instinctual response when I wake up early in the morning and I see this missile on my phone, I said, I cannot believe this thing. You know, obviously, okay, time lag. I am in South America, so 10-hour difference. First batch of questions. And already at the first batch of questions, they said, look, the information is, that's it. They stand by it 100%, even more than 100%. And then I said, but there's too many holes in it. This is something that Larry saw, Ray McGovern saw, Scott Ritter saw, you know, very, very knowledgeable people who know about intel, about secrecy, about possibility of fake news, about manipulation by intel agencies, you name it. But when your gut instinct tells you, okay, this might be true, but I need corroboration, of course. So then sets of questions. And then finally, this morning at 5 in the morning, I got at least a partial answer to my first questions. Corroboration from 2 intel agencies from 2 separate Asian nations, and especially how it worked, where it came from. Unfortunately, I wish I could tell you, all of you, it comes from a big power, the main source. And now it's confirmed and reconfirmed. What I could not get from the other intel sources, but why they want this to be, they knew that there would be a leak somewhere, even though in the first message I received, the last paragraph was, there is a pact of silence among all the big players involved that this should not go public. The problem is it leaked, and now it's in the public domain. Okay, let's say that I'm responsible for it. I take it, you know, it's my responsibility. But I made a judgment. I said, look, this is so volatile and volcanically important. People have to know about that. What's happening? What's going to happen next? Public opinion will judge all over the world, you know. So what I did was to put this extremely hot information in the public domain, so everyone will have an opportunity to judge it, not only based on the information itself, the way the information is shaped, and the absence of details. This tells us, and I hope Larry can expand on it, what leaked was what the original source wanted to be leaked, without details. But the shape, the package of the information with those extremely volcanic, non-details, let's put it this way, but the chain, F-35, Israeli base, shot over Jordanian airspace, no details, EMP attack over Iranian territory. Of course, there are so many holes in it. But obviously, considering this is essentially classified information, they could not release 10 paragraphs explaining how it worked. They wanted to send a message. Okay, this is the shape of what happened, even if it's very vague in several details. I pressed. As a journalist, I had to press. And I had to be convinced that these holes, maybe the holes were deliberate. And finally, tonight, I got a reconfirmation of the original source and the fact that both sources, 2 different intel agencies, stand by it completely. And another information that is extremely important. The original source of information didn't get it from another intel agency. Okay, I have to stop over there. They found
Can you share it?
They found it by themselves. So this proves that this intel agency of, let's put it this way, big power, they are extremely well organized, much more than is suspected in the West. So when I put this all together, I said, okay, what should be done now maybe is, okay, now I go silent. I'll do probably a last tweet X about that. I showed the information that I received. I showed, for instance, a conversation with a high-level Russian diplomat who said two things that are very, very important. One, if this is true, it's quite plausible. And number two, if this is true, nobody will want this to go public. And it's amazing because this dovetails exactly what the first source had told me in the last paragraph. Look, there is a pact of silence and nobody's going to talk about it. That's it. What is publicly available, that's it. So we cannot go further than that. So as an analyst and a journalist and somebody who received this information, now I'm facing a wall. So now that it's in the public domain, it's public opinion that will compare what's going to happen from now on, and the facts of what's going to happen from now on may eventually corroborate the story. Because don't forget, we are already in a new equation. And I would say that the core of this information is directly related to this new equation. And there are many, many big powers involved in this new equation. It's not only Iran. Don't forget, Iran, strategic relationships, Russia, China, Brics, SCO, and Anya said at the beginning something extremely crucial. These attacks are against Brics. Brics is being attacked because Brics is the threat against the established order, as Larry would put it, the rules-based international order. The number one threat to the rules-based international order is actually Brics and the SCO. And the fact that the Brics and the SCO, and now this is something that is being discussed openly in Moscow and in Beijing. They might even merge. If not this year, maybe in the next year, 2-3 years from now. So this is more or less to give all of you the overall picture at the moment. This is not an isolated incident by any means. Nobody is saying that this happened. This might have happened. We have surefire confirmation by 2 intel agencies. Are they playing us? It's always a possibility. We don't know. Considering their background and considering this comes from Asia, no, they're not lying. People don't do that in Asia. It's not part of the ethos. It's not part of the mentality. What we don't know, and it's something that I'm sure I think we'll never get an answer. Why do we need to know this now? I think this is the key question now. Okay, if they made the information relatively public and they knew there would be a leak from somewhere, and in fact, the leak did not come from the main source. It came from the second source. They were already counting on the possibility of a leak. So they packaged the information to a certain shape with some vague details because this is what they wanted public opinion to know. I know this is very, very hard for most people to grasp, to understand, and to even trust. But this is what it is at the moment. And in our role as independent journalists, and Cy Hirsch, for instance, will be the first to tell us all, look, when I'm presented with explosive information, I publish it.
Yeah.
Larry, please. I'm eager to listen to your interpretation.
Yeah, well, so I'll put this out there for everybody to, be assured of.
Yes.
Pepe Escobar is not a liar or a fabricator.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, that's number one. And I think he is accurately reporting what his sources are saying. And I can come up with what I see, and the holes I've shared with Pepe, and I don't want to go into those right now. I think the thing that troubles me, not so much about what Pepe's reporting, but the entire story about the Israeli attack on Iran doesn't make sense. And nobody has come out to really throw the red flag or call bullshit on it, because in the aftermath of the Iranian strike on Israel, which was I call it a symbolic demonstration as opposed to one that was actually designed to be a strategic attack to accomplish specific military objectives, that there's all this, Israel's going to retaliate. Israel's going to retaliate. And I know particularly among the Western Jewish elite in the United States, they harbor this myth that, oh man, Israel can go strike Iran anytime. They can do what they did to Iraq when they hit the Osiris reactor back in the 1980s. And it's like, I keep telling them, no, it's not like that, because number one, Iran's key military nuclear installations, they're buried underground. They're deep, what they call hardened, deeply buried targets, HDBTs. And I worked directly on military exercises that trying to deal with that situation. And it's just, the West doesn't have a simple, easy answer for it. In terms of Israel's ability to strike back at Iran, what happened that night is, I was starting to write a piece, and it was about, I'd just been on Press TV, which is the Iranian English-speaking version, and they were bringing up the fact that Israel was now putting the word out that, there was damage done to the Dimona nuclear facility in Israel, that Iran had attacked it. And I'm going, well, that's a shift in the narrative, because we were just being told that 99.9% shot down, no damage. Oh, it was a failure, an ultimate embarrassment for Iran. Now we're getting a shift in the narrative. Oh no, they tried to attack our nuclear place. So I'm thinking, all right, Israel's laying a predicate so they can justify trying to launch an attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. And then within a half hour, my son comes and says, hey, there's breaking news. And so I turn it on, and man, the CNN, Fox, MSNBC here in the United States, oh my God, it was, I call it the breaking news mambo. It's a dance, and there's lots of excitement and moving around, and breaking news. And according to Israeli sources, so the Israeli sources are admitting that there's an attack underway. The United States is saying it's missiles, that there's explosions, madness, mayhem, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. That line from Ghostbusters. And then over the next 24 hours, it's like this car comes to a screeching halt and does immediately a 180, or what Annalena Baerbock calls a 360. And all of a sudden, Israel's like, attack? We didn't attack. And then the United States starts walking all this story back. And then the report out of Iran is it was just 4 quadcopter drones that are these little drones about the size of a large cooking pan. And then but something did cause damage. My point is, we don't have the damn story. We really don't know what happened. What we're being fed are lots of lines of bullshit. And the thing that I don't have any insight into, but I believe is taking place, is that there were private communications by the Russians with Iran and with the West and with the Chinese. There was a lot that's going on behind the scenes, because I think at least some recognize this could get out of control real quick. And then all of a sudden you're looking at some major nuclear exchanges. And I think deep down, nobody wants that. So, that I don't know if that helps, but I have no answers for this. I take Pepe's reporting at face value. It's what he's being told, and he's getting multiple. He's not saying it's just, one guy. I was a victim of an intelligence operation by the Clinton campaign. So back in summer of 2007, when they were running against Barack Obama going into 2008. I was friends with Max Blumenthal's father, Sid Blumenthal.
Sid, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Sid calls me up and goes, "Hey, we just got information that there's a tape of Michelle Obama using the word whitey, talking about those white people. The whitey did this and whitey did that." And I went, "Wow." And he said, "See if you can find some corroboration for it. Maybe put it out." So I made a call to a journalist that Pepe and I were talking about before we went on air. And that journalist said, "Yeah, I've heard that too." I'm going, "Man." And then I called a friend, a former agency buddy, and who was out in California involved politically. And he goes, "Yeah, we've been picking that up too." So I wrote it up saying, "This is, I've heard this from multiple sources."
Mm-hmm.
And it went viral. Everybody was on TV talking about this and that. And finally, it wasn't coming together. The tape wasn't showing up. So I went back to Sid and I said, "I need to talk to your source." And so who did Sid send me to? David Brock of Media Matters.
Wow.
And so Brock tells me this cockamamie story. And I realized at that point I'd been played.
You have been played.
Because what they did is they told 2 or 3 different people to create the impression that you had multiple sources when it was only one source. It was a David Brock operation on behalf of the Clinton campaign. And I later wrote an apology. Now, what was the funny part of this story is within 3 days, the Obama campaign came out and said, this is not true. She didn't say whitey, WHITEY. She said, "Why did he?" That's what she said. "Why did he?" And I'm going, God, if they're getting that kind of denial, she must have said it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just, that's sometimes how this information can get out into the public space. And so I came up with thinking, what would be one reason to feed Pepe this information? Well, Pepe is such an effective, smart journalist and is really a leader in getting truth out there that the West abhors, that they would seek to try to discredit it. That enters the back of my mind. Is this an effort to discredit Pepe? But like I said, the thing I know is Pepe is a man of integrity. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Larry. And in the end, it was exactly the opposite. It came to me because they trusted me.
Yeah.
And they knew that I would not play with this information or distort it, etc. I published the raw information. That I think that's why people were so shocked, because it's explosive in its raw configuration. But we won't have very, very serious corroboration officially from anybody. That's for sure. And obviously, I will be exposed because of that. I don't care. I don't mind. I think I did my job as a journalist in this case. That's it. So now it's the public that's going to judge from now on if facts match what might have happened.
Right. Well, and again, just understand the public story that's out there that's been pushed by the Western media about what happened in Iran with the Israeli attack.
Yes.
It's not true either.
It's not true. It's not true at all. Exactly. And we received, well, this is confidential, but at least I can tell all of you that the Iranians passed information, that confidential information, saying that Israeli losses in this operation were serious. So we cannot get into details. And I don't think they will make this public. This is another card that the Iranians will hold. Right. Go ahead, Larry, please.
No, I was just going to say again, that helps. That could be another explanation for why there's such bizarre secrecy about it. Because remember, initially, man, the Pentagon and CIA and State Department were stumbling over each other to put the word out. Man, Israel's punching back. It's a limited strike, but boy, they're hitting it. And then after that, it was like, never mind. And you go, wait, what happened here? So that, the fact, the last thing Israel wants to get out there on the street is that it did try to launch a coordinated attack against Iran, and Iran shut it down.
And Iran shut it down. Exactly. Yes. Anya?
Thank you so much. I'm sure the audience is pretty satisfied with your explanation here. I'm sure. But I want to become very serious now with the second most profitable business in the world, that I don't think the media, especially the media, is giving enough attention, and that is human trafficking. In 2020, it was reported that $150 billion was approximately the profit for this. And what I would like to do right now, before I ask you the question, is to go through some tweets, posts, articles, for example, and some data. 72% of imports of children from Guatemala go to United States. Last year, there were also containers coming to US from Veracruz in Mexico, who had children inside of them as well. And everyone knows that NGOs, those of you who don't know what NGOs are, what it stands for is non-governmental organizations, are a big problem, especially US aid. The border between United States and Mexico can be completely slashed with what's going on with this situation, because there is absolutely madness. And why they are targeting those children, especially with Guatemala lately, is because they are screening those children because they have a certain, how to put it, not to be too cruel. When you do organ transplantations, certain children are better than the other for that, because the transplant rejections rates are lower by 50%. Also, the earmark for kids' peace is listed in the 4,155-page omnibus bill that senators are expected to approve this week. The bill includes $772.5 billion, and I don't know if this is even, but that's the number I came across, and non-defense discretionary, apologies for my English pronunciation, spending on earmarks like, for example, Kids Peace Renovation Project. The bill includes tens of millions more on spending on other pet projects, including $477 million in spending at Equality Labs for anti-racism virtual labs, and $3.6 million. Here we come to the Big Mike, well, Michelle Obama, trail in Georgia. My question here, gentlemen, is this, and I don't talk about this much enough. I should talk about this more, because what we are really facing is, and I say it several times on my channel, this is war between good and evil. This is not just about oil and money and power. This is about humanity at the end of the day. The second most profitable business in the world is human trafficking. Every war that is being created generates millions of refugees, children, women that are sacrificed for those elites, so they can have organ transplantations and do their experiments. I want to know your thoughts on this. I know this is not usually the topic that I address, especially with Larry, so I apologize. But it's very serious, and I think the money goes not just to Ukraine or Israel, or that's what's really taking place behind the scenes.
Let Pepe go first.
Well, I'm speechless, especially about the numbers and the fact that it's actually the second largest business in the world, in fact. It has to do with I wouldn't say a surge, but the spread of pedophilia all over the world. It has to do with a subsect of the genocide in Gaza when they find shallow graves and organs of many of those have been extirpated to go to the black market all over the world. I think it's on a level of inhumanity. We don't even have ethical criteria to judge this, how serious, how grave this is. But it's part of the black market industry matrix all over the world. And trafficking with live human beings or dead or what belonged to live human beings, right?
Yeah.
But
Go ahead,
Pepe, I
Anya, you wanna
apologize
say
to
something?
interrupt you. I apologize to interrupt you, but projects like Clinton Foundation, Haiti, what's going on in those places, we all know here, okay? Like, we don't have to
Yes.
pretend. We don't know what's going on there. And what those names of those projects really are covering, what they stand for.
Yeah.
Larry?
But, yeah, I agree with you, Anya, that this really is at the root of all of this is this war against good and evil. And the dimensions of this evil, I've seen it firsthand. This happened now almost 30 years ago, but I was the assistant director at a summer camp for a church, and they were bringing in kids from Baltimore who lived in a part of the town that was called Pigtown. It was in the southwest corner of Baltimore City. And but this area is actually largely white. It's not black. And we were told that the kids that were coming to this camp that we had to be careful of because they had been very sexually active in ways. And they said this one child who was 11 probably has more knowledge than most adults. So, well, it turned out that this 11-year-old boy had been trafficked by his own mother since he was 6 years old. And she would, allow homosexual relations to take place with her son. Now, can you imagine what that does to a child? And so, and it was not an isolated incident. I mean, it happened repeatedly over and over and over. I mean, it really just, destroyed this child. So when you look at what Russia has become in the wake of the collapse of the Soviet Union, with the rebirth of the Eastern Orthodox Christian Church, and one of the distinguishing things between the Eastern Orthodox Christian Church and the Roman Catholic Church is the Roman Catholic Church has been a protector of pedophilia. They have enabled, protected priests who have abused tens of millions of children around the world. I mean, it's an epidemic on the part of the Catholic Church. You don't have that in the Eastern Orthodox Christian Church because of the fact that priests are not required to take this vow of celibacy, and it hasn't become just an outlet for homosexuals to come in, because the Eastern Orthodox Church continues to maintain that homosexuality is a sin. They don't hate the person, but they maintain that this is sinful behavior. And now when you start talking like this, immediately I'm a hater. But when you go back into the scriptures of the Old Testament, at least those that are, so both Jews and Christians recognize the Old Testament as a holy book. The account of Sodom and Gomorrah, which was, this was written thousands of years ago, and yet it's you have to classify it adult only reading, because this problem of human nature where they debase other human beings through sexual abuse. And so one of the underlying themes that nobody talks about is the fact that Russia's stand on these moral issues makes it a pariah in the Western world, because the Western world is consumed with perversion and degeneracy. There's no other way to describe it, because that has become commonplace, where we elevate men who claim to be women and then have to make everybody say that, hey, you can't say that they're a man. That's hate speech, where you can't admit to reality anymore. And I maintain that at the heart of true religion, not just Christianity and Judaism and Islam, at the heart of each of them is this concept that the human being, every human being has worth, that they are a creation of God, that it's not some are created better than others, that God loves this person more than that person, but that at the center is this elevation of the human soul, and that is held within each person, that they are valuable. And so when you have a political system that puts the value of the human being above all, as opposed to this industrialized murder that we have going on now, where these are just bodies that can be sold, they can be sexualized, they can be killed, they can be harvested, because they're not a person, it's a thing.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
Larry, I want to thank you for those words. I came across the data that actually only 40% of those that are trafficked goes to sexual abuse. The rest is used for organ harvesting and experiments. And one of the projects that actually has something to do with it is, for example, Brain Initiative that Obama has started. So there is a lot to this story, and I don't know everything. Sometimes it's very hard for me to keep going deeper because I'm an empath and I have a lot of emotions when I read this stuff. I cannot just block it for some reason, I feel it. So it's very difficult. And when I watch those videos, especially lately from Gaza, it's you cannot unsee it. We talk about it, Larry, before. You cannot unsee it. It's just, it stays in your subconscious.
Yeah.
I want to end this live stream, and I'm very, very grateful for this roundtable. I just wanted to know, gentlemen, immensely. Like, I'm stretching my level of understanding like yourself. I want to ask you, Pepe, about your latest book. Can you talk about it? And can you tell me what is the most, I would say, for the reader, if reader comes across this book, what will be the most shocking information that they will read in this book?
No, it's not shocking. It's actually a roadmap. The first text is from late 2019, like 3 months after the Taliban reconquered Afghanistan. And the last one is my first trip to Donbass this year, in February this year. And in between, you have, I would say, almost everything that we have been living. The ascension of Brics, the path towards de-dollarization, corridors of connectivity across Eurasia, the folly of NATO, of course, the war in Ukraine, how for instance, there is a lot of Michael Hudson and Sergei Glaziev across the book as well. And in the middle, there are some, let's say, pit stops. For instance, I use a trip to Sicily to talk about NATO. As you all know, there is a major NATO base in Sicily, Sigonella. I use Bukhara in Central Asia to talk about the return of the heartland. I use a trip to deep Anatolia to see Rumi to talk about Turkic peoples. So this is more or less alleviates the read. If the reader starts to read it chronologically, there are these pit stops. But it can be a self-service book as well. There's something here about the International North-South Transportation Corridor, which is a big connectivity thing, and 3 big players, Russia, Iran, and India. So he can focus on that. And then he starts correlating to other things happening in Eurasia. So it's a mix of a travel book of these past 3 years or so, a geopolitical analysis, but also with a cultural, anthropological, religious component as well. So there's nothing shocking for a Western reader apart from the fact that this is a new world that is growing that he won't find on mainstream media anywhere across the West. So that would be the major shock.
Pepe, and I already attached the link down below, but tell us
Thank you.
Where they can buy it, where they can buy the book.
Exactly. Well, it's an American publisher, of course, a small one from Ann Arbor, Michigan, by the way. On Amazon, you can find it on hardback, paperback, and Kindle. And if you enter one of those Kindle programs, you can actually, for 1 month or so, you can actually read it for free. So if you don't want to pay for it, it's very simple. You enroll in the Kindle program for 1 month, you read it for free, and then you drop it. It's very, very simple,
Can I just ask you a personal question here before we end this live stream?
Of course.
So I self-published on Amazon as well, several books, and actually the last one, first was my novel, and then were 3 books for children in English.
I see.
When I was in Russia, when I was in Moscow, I published the latest one, and they removed all of my books when I did it from Russia. So they closed my Amazon account.
Of
every
course,
single thing.
It's the Russia connection, Anya. Yeah.
Yes.
You cannot do that.
No,
I mean, from an Amazon point of view, you cannot do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, no more Amazon for me. But the links to buy the books are down below the video, so you can click there, guys. Gentlemen, I want to say thank you for your time today. I really hope we can connect again, 3 of us. I shared the story with the audience. Pepe Escobar is the only guest that actually I met in person before I interviewed.
No, you met Larry in person.
Well, but that was after she'd interviewed me.
After, I see. Okay.
Yes. So this is very different and very special. I'm so glad you found time, both of you, and you gave me so much time. Larry,
no, actually,
Pepe, thank you so much.
Actually, I was just gonna say, so Pepe and I had the pleasure of having some drinks and conversation in the bar area in the Hotel Metropole. And that's where Anya did the interview with me over on the side wall.
I remember. I was looking to my right side, and there was Anya interviewing Larry.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching.
Thank you both. It was an enormous pleasure. Thank you both.
Yeah, same here.
And please leave comments down below. I am learning from your comments too, guys. You know it. And hit this like. It's free of charge. It helps more people to see the live stream and, get educated in some areas that they have been brainwashed for years, right? I've been brainwashed too. I unbrainwashed myself.
Unbrainwashing yourself.
Thank you, guys. Until next time.
Guys.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, good to see you, Pepe. Stay safe, brother.